Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of All You Need to Know with your host, Saranya Gopinath. It's been a minute since we've caught up. Between life and adulting, I haven't had the chance to catch up with all of you. But while I've been gone, a lot of things have been happening in the AI world, and we have a bunch of things to catch up on. So let's dive right in. The last time we caught up, we did a deep dive on AI agents and particularly AI browsers. We had a chance to understand exactly what AI agents are, how they are incorporated into AI browsers, the browsers themselves being one of the first instances introducing us to how we can incorporate AI agents easily into our world and our workspace. We also thought about what exactly all these orgs are trying to do with browsers and the real estate that they are looking to capture. But turns out that was just the beginning of the agentic story. In December of 2025, while we were all gearing up for the holiday season, a true Christmas miracle occurred. Big AI companies came together to create a foundation which would be holding the industry standard on agentic processes. That's right. In December 25, AI biggies like AWS, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, and Block came together to create the Agentic AI Foundation. What exactly is that? The AAIF, as it's now known, is hosted by the Linux Foundation, and it will be a neutral, open foundation to ensure that agentic AI evolves transparently and collaboratively. As part of this foundation, there were some founding contributions. They were the MCP from Anthropic, Goose from Block, and Agents.md from OpenAI. What exactly are these pieces? Let's break them down. Agents.md is a universal standard markdown convention that gives AI agents a consistent source of project-specific guidance, which is basically a convention that makes agents uniformly understand their parameters and generate more predictable behavior. One analogy that's often used is that a standard convention like this is kind of like the agent's business card. It tells you who they are, what they do, and what their operating meters are. This enables agents to understand what exactly are the operating parameters of this agent, what it is expected to do, and it allows for the agents to process this information in a very methodical manner and also generate more predictable behavior. So that's agents.md. Goose from Block, which was the erstwhile Square app, is an open source local first AI agent framework. It's effectively a structured environment for building and executing agentic workflows. For you to, as a developer, use these agents to be able to create, test, and deploy them, this is a framework created by Block, which kind of templatizes that entire experience. And of course, there is the one that started this all, the MCP, the Model Context Protocol from Anthropic, the USB-C protocols. This, which was released by Anthropic in 2024, rapidly became the universal standard protocol for connecting AI models to tools, data, and applications. So that's MCP by Anthropic, Goose by Block, and Agents.md from OpenAI. All of these three pieces coming together in a foundation launched and co-created by some of the biggest names in the AI world. What does this all mean? The biggest tech companies in the world just reiterated their faith that AI and agentic AI is now going to become the new global norm. By putting together the foundation, they have confirmed that these protocols, frameworks, and conventions will be the manner by which all of the agents across OpenAI, Anthropic, Uber, AWS, and many, many more members, this is the language and the convention with which each of these agents will communicate, interact, and transact. This is now what all of these organizations have aligned will be the open standards of the agentic world. But before we further dive into this, let's step back and understand what exactly is this trying to solve. Creating open standards for agentic AI sounds great, but what's the problem statement? And why do we need these open standards, right? Let's go back to the beginning. When we are setting out to create an agentic experience, there are three large problems that have been occurring so far. Firstly, the integration hell. Every AI model needs custom connectors to every data source. So let's say you have n models and m data sources. N times n is an infinite number of connectors. What do we mean by that? So let's say you are using OpenAI and you want to connect it to Google Drive, Slack, and GitHub. That's three connectors for three different apps or three different tools that you want to access with OpenAI. Now, if you substitute OpenAI with, let's say, Claude that my friend wants to use, that's another three connectors. So that's 9 integrations right there. And that's not even exploring the expanse of tools and applications that you would want to access from your AI starting point. That's first one, the integration help. Then there is the coordination problem. If various AI agents need to work and coordinate together, there is no standardized way of doing this. So let's say we have an AI agent that is working on my calendar, that's working through all of my efficiency tools. If I want that AI agent to interact with any other agent out there, whether it's like the booking agent of my doctor's office or the booking agent of a restaurant or a Zomato, there is no way for these agents, or there's no standardized manner for these agents to be talking to each other. It's like trying to build the internet without TCP/IP. There is no common agreed language or convention for the multiple agents to be interacting with each other. Then the last, of course, is the developer experience nightmare, which is that if a developer tries to start building out an agentic workflow, they have two options. Either they start building everything customized from scratch, or they choose a vendor, but then that comes with the threat that you may have vendor lock-in, that the ecosystem within which you are creating agents may not be accessible or interactable with other ecosystems of agents. And that's a major concern for when you're trying to build out a world. All of these problems, if you think about now with what you understand what MCP block and agents.md tries to do, you can see how each of these problems was being addressed by Anthropic, OpenAI, and Block in their own separate ways. But by bringing them together in the Agentic AI Foundation, you realize that these open systems become greater than the sum of its parts. Because by putting these out there, which is core conventions, protocols, and frameworks, we are now saying this is now industry standard. MCP connects AI to data, agents.md connects AI agents to agents, and Goose makes it usable for all developers. Together, they are the infrastructure for agentic AI. And by donating them to the Linux Foundation, these companies have made their competitive moat the public goods, and in that, the industry defaults. This is off to a great start. This allows companies across the world to start building agentic experiences, knowing that they will not have to do a truckload of translation. They will not have to worry about creating custom connectors with every new tool that they want to interact with. And we've already seen the success of this. MCP, since its launch in 2024, has become the default across the ecosystem. Everybody is creating their own MCP libraries, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Servers are being set up, and there's been a lot of activity that's been going on across this. Ensuring that these experiences are all agent interactable and agent readable is becoming the default process when creating a product or a company. And that's really what the building or the coming together of the Agentic AI Foundation really signals. That the Agentic AI world is the future of how we all are going to be interacting. When you are trying to, whether it is book your tickets or buy something from the internet, you are going to be having a primarily agent forward or agent first experience. And that's what all of these companies are betting on, and which is why it was so important for all of these competitors to come together on a platform, get on the same page, and ensure that these protocols and these common standards and conventions become the way in which they all interact, and they kind of lay down the rules of war, so to speak. It's a really interesting inflection point of how they see the hockey stick growth of agents and the agents interaction model. But this is just the beginning. What we're seeing is now a bunch of these protocols starting off. So let's say if all of this infra is the silver bullet, the next question is, why are we seeing more protocol standards, or what have we seen so far? So we've heard of A2A, A2P, UCP, and whatever is evolving next. What do all these protocols do? Where does this fit in? And how are we to understand what happens next? So let's start at the beginning. What does MCP fundamentally do? The Model Context Protocol is the connectivity layer. It connects AI to data, and it enables that there is fundamental connectivity between any AI system, whether it's OpenAI, Claude, or let's say Gemini, and ensuring that there is a similar language or the protocol with which they can then fetch data from systems across the place, which is why it's often called the USB-C of protocols, right? However, they still need different protocols for different specific problems and use cases. It's kind of like different instances. A2A, for example, is the framework for how agents talk to each other, agent to agent protocol. A2P is how agents interact with humans in standardized way. The Universal Commerce Protocol, which was released by Google in January, is again a huge inflection point, talks about how agents will execute transaction, handle payments, and maintain ledgers, effectively the default for the commerce world. Each of these protocols tries to achieve a specific instance or use case, and you try to look at the worlds which you need to navigate by protocol. Let me explain this to you with an example. So let's take an instance where you are planning a company offsite. You start off with talking to your own assistant agent. And that agent, your assistant, will use an MCP protocol to access your calendar to understand when you are available and when the offsite is to be scheduled. Then, for the assistant to interact with, let's say, the venue where you want to plan the company's offsite, it needs to interact with the venue's booking agent. So that's your agent interacting with the venue's booking agent, and that will require the A2A protocol, agent to agent. Next, for the agent to then, once it has retrieved this information and details from the venue agent, it then wants to come back to you and say, hey, these are what we've come back with. These are the details. What are your preferences? What are the other details that I haven't been able to capture? Let's say things like dietary restrictions, food preferences, and other such details. For all of that, for the agent to interact with you, that is agent to person, that's when the A2P protocol comes in. And then finally, to book the venue and to make the payments, you have the Universal Commerce Protocol, which was launched by Google. So as you can see, in just one single activity, you will need to daisy chain multiple protocols depending on what is the activity and what is the actual information you need to seek, what is the interaction point, and so on and so forth. On the surface of it, this looks like a little of an overkill. Like, do we need protocols for each such piece? But yes, that's already how you are interacting with the world. Let's take the analogy of the internet. You need a TCP IP for the actual transportation of the data. You need the HTTP layer for the application. You also have different standards for payment rails, identity systems, and so on and so forth. So there is fundamentally a need for kind of micro standardizations depending on the action you take. And that's what the protocols are currently doing. There is a micro standardization for each action and different interface points. And that's how this ecosystem is developing. The Universal Commerce Protocol is a great example, which was released by Google in January. It's taking this commerce use case and identifying what all is required and seeing what are the different checks and balances the protocol needs to have built in. The Universal Commerce Protocol was co-created by Google with a bunch of leading commerce players like Etsy, Shopify, large merchants, in making sure that commerce protocols meet all of their requirements, whether it's across payments, how the inventory is to be retrieved, how merchant sovereignty is to be maintained, and so on and so forth. So there was a large use case which Google was then able to condense into functional protocols by co-creating with the merchant community. Now, while we see the utility of all of these, I unfortunately have to tell you that this is not the only protocols out there. There are a bunch of more protocols. There's a like solid alphabet soup happening. Like there is a gRPC, which is the Google Remote Procedure Protocol. There is MQTT, which is message queuing, telemetry transport, QUIC, quick UDP internet connections, basically protocols for every use case you can think of and more waiting in the wings. Okay, so where do we go from here? These are more protocols that we know what to do with, and we need to figure out how to navigate this world. What happens from here? This is my best bet. Just like in any other ecosystem, we are now at the Cambrian explosion stage. We will see an explosion of protocols, multiple giants coming up with different pieces that they want to identify, break down, and solve. Just like Google has tried to address commerce, I'm sure somebody's going to come up with a health protocol. Somebody's going to come up with something with maybe in the sports world, different ecosystem like for broadcasting. So different use cases will see different protocols. Different players will try to solve similar problems differently. There will be overlap, there will be chaos, there will be good chaos, and hopefully a lot of innovation will occur. This is the Cambrian explosion moment, where over the year we will see all of them trying to come up with different solutions across use cases. This, to me, is just phase one. Phase two will be consolidation, where you will see the users pick up the protocols that they prefer and they use. And so basically, the market will naturally select winners, which is which protocols are kind of most adapted and accepted by the using community, whether it's by customers, merchants, and so on and so forth. And from that, there will be some de facto standards that come up, right? Just from the adoption and usage. There will be some protocols that fall by the wayside, which people don't like as much. And there will be some which become the winners, whether it's by negotiation or whether it's just by which protocols seem to work for people the best. I think there'll be a final phase, phase three, which is when the actual standardization happens, right? Just like the web and other technology, we will see standard setting bodies that emerge for what we know. The Agentic AI Foundation could be one such standard setting body which decides, hey, for this use case, this will become the standard protocol. And then everybody kind of just coalesces around it. And there will be some people who kind of get left out. And that's just how standards setting works. But I think what I personally find interesting is that there are certain protocols that possibly have not been thought of yet, which to me actually seem very obvious ones that we possibly need to address. For example, language adapters. In India, we know that there are multiple internets. There is the Tamil internet, there is the Hindi internet, there is the Kannada internet, and so on and so forth. So it's not just a matter of translation, which is very, very important to make sure that it's all accessible, but also in making sure that different languages are being able to translate with adequate context. And that is also part of the protocol layer. It would be interesting to see a payments protocol for UPI. While Google has thought about the Universal Commerce Protocol for certain payment systems, there are indigenous payment systems like UPI in India, Pix in Brazil. So it would be great to see how some of those protocols are built in as well. And then, of course, you then have protocols required for maybe different privacy laws. Every nation has its own privacy law and norms. It would be great to see how those protocols emerge to ensure that this privacy preservation of data as data moves and as agents interact with personal data to execute what you need. Phew. Okay. That's a bit of information, and it's a good way to kickstart back into the new year. To my mind, 2026 will be the year of execution AI. I think 2024, 25, it was a little bit of the chatbots, was a little bit of us just talking to AI, figuring out what can this do, what can this not do. It was a lot of one-on-one interaction. But I think 2026 is when a lot of the agentic world is really going to blow up. We are going to be using more agents than we can realize in executing our day-to-day activities. It'll start off by us interacting with agents and not knowing it. But then I'm pretty sure that by the end of the year, we are going to be deploying agents for different activity. And that's only limited by your imagination. Protocols, frameworks, all of that, there's going to be a huge explosion of it. So it's going to get a little noisy. But all I can say is please stay close to the agentic world. It's really what, from a product, technology, governance perspective, is going to be the future. And there's a lot of interesting things to watch out for. Play around with them, try to see how you can incorporate them in your life. Start off with something simple, like trying to create like a summary of the news, to start your day. And that will give you a sense of what you wanted to do, how you wanted to summarize, and then kind of managing your calendar and things like that. Lots of interesting use cases. And actually, what I would love to see is use cases for which we haven't thought of protocols yet, that we haven't thought of solutions yet. And it'd be great to see what we all come up with based on our needs and our requirements. So let me know. Let me know what protocols have been missed out on and what use cases haven't been thought of as yet. But until then, stay tuned into the agentic world and the AI world. And I'll see you soon at another episode of All You Need to Know. Ciao.